Berkshire News and Berkshire Stories with Phil Kennedy.
Be part of it.
5:19, read online about this story. A new pedestrian and cycle bridge for Reading is badly designed and won't be big enough to cope with the rising numbers of cyclists in town. Yes, you can read more at bbc.co.uk/Berkshire. All of this is according to the Reading Cycle Campaign, which claims the council has flawed data on the number of people using bikes in the town. The bridge will link Christchurch Meadows with the redeveloped railway station, expected to be built next year. Adrian Lawson is the chair of the Reading Cycle Campaign. Evening to you there, Adrian.
Good evening.
So your concerns, you think some data's wrong, there's more cyclists, basically?
Well, indeed, that's one of the things that we found looking through the planning application. We've said ever since the bridge was first discussed that we think that it should have a separate cycle lane for the number of people that we estimate will use it. When they've submitted the planning application, they've made a case that says that the level of use is not going to be all that high, which is kind of admitting failure in the first place. So therefore, it'd be quite adequate to mix cyclists and pedestrians together. We've always been against that, and now we've looked at their data and we found that the figures that we have are completely different to the figures that they have.
So let's do the science bit. Tell us the numbers then. What is wrong? How much is there a difference by?
We've been carrying out a cycle census for more than 20 years now. So we have data that goes back a long time, and we compared that data with the data that they have. And although obviously the levels have fluctuated over the years, but we've got probably 3 or 4 times as many cyclists going over the bridge, on sometimes many more times than that, going over the bridge than they've counted. And we also went out to back up our figures and counted the number of cyclists going over the bridge last week. And I didn't do it personally, one of my colleagues did. And I think we counted 186 cyclists in the hour, and they estimated 27. So if all these... And part of the problem here isn't just the existing cyclists. This bridge is supposed to help us switch from being dependent on cars to being able to make cycling a viable opportunity for people to travel into town from Caversham and back the other way. And if it's going to be congested today or next year when they build it, it's going to be absolutely hopeless in a few years' time.
OK, so, and obviously there are various reasons for this, price of oil, I suppose people want to get fitter, I suppose, if nothing else, local Reading Borough Council policy and Bradley Wiggins is all mixed to it, and there's an awful lot of people on bikes now, aren't there?
Absolutely. Cycling is on the up. It's such a sensible means of travelling. We know, from the council's figures, although not that we should necessarily trust them in the light of this recent evidence, but the council have estimated that 75% of all the journeys to go over the 2 bridges start and finish within 2 miles of the bridges. 75% of all those journeys are under 4 miles long. Now, if we can switch a number of those to cycling, that could be, you know how many people drive over those bridges. If we can switch a large number of those people to making some of their journeys by bicycle, because now currently the crossing of the rivers is hideous. If we can make it a really pleasant crossing for cyclists, we could generate an enormous number of cycle trips. And this bridge simply won't cope with it. And if they're making it shared use, so pedestrians and cyclists, you know what it's like with people cycling on the pavements. That's effectively what they're going to do. They're going to be designing a bridge for cyclists to ride on the pavement. It's shocking, really.
Just finally, a quick word, because I'm about to speak to Tony Page. You have tried to speak to Tony or the council, haven't you, and give your concerns and your info to the council?
We attended their consultation exercise back in May, and 29, although they claim 29, but again, their figures are slightly out, we make it 30. 30 people commented at the consultation to say that they thought the bridge should be segregated. Pedestrians and cyclists should be segregated. That was 10 times more people than any other issue. So that's including landscape design, the landing in the playground, all the other factors that people are concerned with. 10 times more people commented that bridge should have segregation, and they've ignored it. And in fact, they've made it worse since then, because at that time, the bridge was suspended from an A-frame, and they've now put a pillar in the middle. So not only is it not segregated, there's an obstruction right in the middle of the bridge, and they're putting benches on it.
All right, well, I think it's high time we brought the council in. Now we're with Tony Page. Adrian, thank you very much indeed. What do you make of that then, Tony? You've had a good listen.
Hello?
Hello there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Phil.
What do you make to those claims, then, from Adrian?
Well, let me just first of all start off by saying that this bridge is not just a cycle bridge. It's intended to be a pedestrian and cycle bridge, and it will be a major, sleek, iconic structure designed to fit in and complement what is a very sensitive location. Secondly, there are nearly 50 comparable pedestrian and cycle bridges already around the country, and none of them have any segregated facility for cyclists. And indeed, Sustrans, the National Cycle Organisation, has written to us supporting unsegregated provision on the bridge, saying that they do not regard it as appropriate. And places like York and Exeter, which actually have a higher proportion of cyclists than we do, although we're aspiring to encourage that, have bridges that have no segregated facility. So the professional advice from cycling organisations nationally, as well as experience from all around the country, points to the benefits of an unsegregated facility.
Yeah, but are you concerned about the fact that your figures may be wrong, and therefore you may be putting both cyclists and pedestrians at risk if they are mixing and matching on the same bridge?
Nonsense. Our figures were done over years, and whilst I don't have the precise figures to hand because the cycling campaign didn't afford me the courtesy of enough time to get the figures unearthed, the figures were done over comparing two separate years in a July. They were spread over a day, and clearly one has to make the point that at certain times of the day, and indeed at certain times of the year, pedestrian and cycle flows will fluctuate. There will clearly be some times when more cyclists will be going over, perhaps in the early morning and evening peak flows, but certainly for the rest of the day, this bridge will become a destination in its own right for pedestrians who will want to go onto the middle of the bridge and look at the Thames from what will be a splendid location. And it simply will not be practical to have segregated cycle lanes because many people will be going from one side of the bridge to the other. Indeed, there may be parents playing poo sticks, for example, with their children from the bridge. So I would make the point, this is a pedestrian and cycle bridge, and we expect users of the bridge to act responsibly. Now, I know it might be a problem for Adrian and some of his colleagues that they might actually have to slow down going over the bridge, but that is a reality, and we would ask cyclists and pedestrians, obviously, out for each other. It works perfectly well on over 40 similar bridges around the country. There's no reason why it can't work just as well in Reading.
So you sound confident that this bridge will be fit for purpose to be a cycle and pedestrian bridge?
This bridge will be not only fit for purpose as a cycle and pedestrian bridge for people wanting to get to and from work and to and from the station, but it will become a major destination in its own right. That's why, Adrian dismissed the concept of having benches on the middle of the bridge. But we know full well that this will become an iconic destination in its own right, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Reading, at that point on the River Thames, is a beautiful place, and we're designing a sleek and iconic bridge, not some great clunky construction like we've got down over the Kennet at Kennetmouth. This is something that we want to have sleek, and we certainly, even if there were an argument to say let's widen the bridge, and there would be major cost implications, I think there would be architectural and planning issues about that, because these bridges are at their best when they are sleek and fit into the local environment. So let's listen to the comments from others who will be using it. I hear the comments from the cycle campaign. They're completely out of line with the advice we're getting from cycling organisations nationally and the experience on similar bridges around the country.
Tony, good to speak to you. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Okay.
It's now 5:28.
BBC Radio.